a depraved husband, a wife that started to pull away. This is the story of Jacque Waller, beloved mother of triplets. She decided she had had enough and told her husband she wanted a divorce. But of course, as with all the stories we talk about here, there is a tragic ending. Welcome to Fear Files, where we discuss and dissect the most mysterious, terrifying, and mind-bending cases from all over the world. Before we start, we would like to say that our thoughts and prayers go towards all the families that fell victim to the deranged actions of this one particular man. Let's take a trip to St. Genevieve, Missouri. I don't know about you, but the town has such a fancy name. It sounds quite European if you think about it. This is where Cheryl Brenneke and her sister Jacque were born. Even though they were supposed to be close, as sisters normally are, Cheryl grew up way too fast. At the age of 16, she married her husband Bob, and soon thereafter she became pregnant. This only furthered the gap between the two. But something would happen that brought them close together yet again during their adulthood. Let's skip ahead about 20 years. Jacque was now in her 30s, and wouldn't you know it, she fell in love. His name was Clay Waller, a guy with a speech impediment and an awkward demeanor about him. Sounds like a catch, huh? Well, Jacque loved these little aspects about him. I guess they were part of his charm. Soon after marrying Clay, Jacque became pregnant. And before you know it, the two sisters had something in common yet again. The pregnancy brought them back together, and as Cheryl said, they were stuck together at the hip. But that didn't mean her sister liked her new brother-in-law. Not in the slightest, and neither did her parents. Nevertheless, he was providing for the family. Clay worked as a deputy for the Cape Girardeau County Sheriff's Office, but it didn't last long. He only kept the position for about a year. According to one of his superiors, Waller had a very untrustworthy demeanor about him and thought that he was better than everyone else. After he was fired, for reasons unknown, he jumped around from job to job. He didn't have much luck providing for his family after that, but that didn't stop Jacque from picking up the slack and making something of herself. She landed a managerial position at a major insurance firm, and from that moment forward, she was perfectly able to provide for the family. One that suddenly included triplets. Yeah, 3 extra mouths to feed. Lucky for her, she got this amazing job. According to her sister, this important job didn't stop her from enjoying everything that came with motherhood. She embraced every single moment of it. But there was one extra baby to take care of. Clay Waller. He didn't help out around the house. He didn't do anything. She was doing everything, from taking care of the kids and the house and going to work. After months and even years of this sort of treatment, Jacque started pulling away from her husband, spending more time with her sister's family. Of course, it wasn't just Clay's unwillingness to help that had her seeking distance. She also knew that he had a lot of affairs. She even confronted him about them after finding different pieces of evidence. But of course, he would just deny it every single time. Jacque wanted a divorce, but she couldn't just spring it on her husband out of the blue. She knew that it wouldn't be safe. Jacque said that she had to do it slowly in order to get out of the marriage safely. The day before Jackie's 39th birthday would be the beginning of her last year on this earth. During that year is when things got worse and worse. As Jacque became more determined to leave, Clay became more unstable. Fearing for her life, Jacque Waller started keeping a diary on her work computer, containing all of the threats Clay was making towards her and her triplets. The most disturbing of all being Wednesday, March 23rd. Clay told me that if he couldn't get me, he would kill our kids. He would take them for a weekend fishing trip, and then he would personally tell me they had drowned so he could see my face. Jacque was terrified, and she even confessed to her sister, saying that she is afraid for her and her children's lives. But shortly thereafter, Clay lost another job, and the two were forced to move out of their house. She would stay with her sister, and he would stay in a house owned by a friend. She just felt that everything was lining up for her breakup. She took the kids, then 5 years old, and moved in with Cheryl and her husband Bob, while Clay moved over an hour away to Jackson. All that was left to do was finalize the divorce, a process Jackie and Clay agreed to discuss in person just after Memorial Day on June the 1st. Jackie's son Maddox was staying with Clay over the weekend, and the plan was for Jackie to meet her soon-to-be ex-husband at her attorney's office before picking up the boy. Jackie called Cheryl just after the meeting, saying that she would be home right away after they wrapped things up and she had picked up her son. But that would be the last time the two sisters would speak. 3 hours passed after the phone call, and Jacque Waller still wasn't home. Cheryl admitted getting a sick feeling, seeing that she hadn't come home yet. The next thing she did was blow up her sister's phone, leaving tons of messages without any response. So then she tried calling the man Jackie said she was going to see. He responded, but not immediately. Cheryl had tried to call a couple of times. Finally, he picked up the phone, and she told him that if she doesn't speak to her sister in 5 minutes, she'll go straight to the police. He asked what was going on, and then she accused him bluntly, saying that he had done something to his ex-wife.
With us, News Director of KZIM, KSIM, joining us, Fawn Riggin. What do you know?
Nancy, I can tell you that everything we just heard was absolutely correct. She did go missing on June 1st, and the family has explained to us that she was estranged from her husband at the time, but in an interview granted on Tuesday with one of our sister newspapers, he said that they were not estranged and that they were not fighting and that she was just going to look into bankruptcy. The family denies that claim wholeheartedly and says they were definitely estranged. But right now, what we know is those 3 beautiful little kids don't know where their mommy is, nor does the family. So since June 1st, it's been chaos for the family and the community.
With me right now, special guest. This is Jackie's sister, Cheryl Brenneke. Cheryl, thank you for being with us. Where are the triplets tonight?
They're at home. They're at my house. That's their home.
So they're with you. Why are they not with their father?
Because he murdered their mother. He's threatened their lives, and not a safe place for them to be.
Does he want them?
Oh, he acts like he does. He really only wants one, the one he calls the boy. And he never has cared about the girls. And he'll take them if, you know, he needs them all 3, but
so let me ask
to make
you
it
this.
look good.
Let me ask you this, Cheryl. You're telling me that you've got custody, you have them physically right now, and he's not trying to get all 3 away? He doesn't want to take them home with him?
Oh, he does. Yeah, he does. But he would really just like the boy, Maddox. That's the one that's his pick of the litter.
Cheryl, I'm going to come right back to you, but joining me is Chief James Humphrey, Chief of Police, Jackson Police Department. Repeat, the husband, Clay Waller, is not a suspect right now, not a formal suspect. Chief, fill me in on the disappearance. What happened that day?
Well, we're well into over 260 leads on this case, Nancy, at this time since June 1st. And through Cheryl, her last known whereabouts on that day was she was going to pick up her son Maddox, she was under the impression she was going to pick up her son Maddox at Clay's house at approximately 4 o'clock that afternoon on the 1st. And we have that from her own words on her cell phone that I am arriving here now, meaning I'm arriving here at Clay's, and that was the last words that she spoke to her loved ones. And that's the last words we have from her with her loved ones.
Clay denied everything. After leaving Jackie's other 2 triplets with their parents in St. Genevieve, she hopped in her car and made the hour-long drive down to Jackson. She walked into the Jackson PD and said that Clay Waller had killed her sister. She still had no evidence, but police officers were still listening to what she was saying. In fact, Jackson police sent a sergeant out to question Clay. When asked when was the last time he had seen her, he responded by saying that he had seen her all day. Clay tells the officers that Jackie had met him at a drugstore sometime after 11 a.m. Then the two had lunch. After that, they split up until 3 o'clock, when they met back up at the attorney's office. He says that after that appointment, Jackie came over not to pick up her son, who Clay said is actually staying with his girlfriend in Illinois, but because she wanted to discuss the divorce. The story sounded suspicious.
Dog's not right.
You'll have to get back away from him. Are you okay, sir? Okay. I can't just why I can find it. Well, they're all over. Yeah, that's careful, guys.
Well, we've been able to clear, well over the hundreds. I'm not, we don't have everything in yet, but yesterday alone, I know we did close to 500, 600 acres. We also were able to clear some water areas, and basically we're just continuing to work. There's multiple areas that we have several teams going out to constantly, and then they come in, and of course the heat has been excruciating. So we're making people come in between assignments and rest and get, hydrated again and take more water when they go back out. And so we've, everybody's been pretty much following, our protocol, because our main priority is keeping everyone safe. But, there are some snakes, and of course the ticks are bad this time of year, but all in all, I think it's even too hot for the snakes. I think they're underground, and which is a good thing. But I hear we got some possible rain coming, and that's actually going to help intensify the search for the dogs, because a lot of our dogs have not been able to last more than 15 to 20 minutes in this heat.
We're just overwhelmed by the generosity of all these people coming out from all over the country. I mean, it's not just local people. It's from South Carolina, Florida, all different parts of the country, and we are just overwhelmed that they would come out and search for our daughter, and they don't even know her.
And almost immediately, the team finds one very big clue. Jackie's car was discovered abandoned on this interstate. One tire was flat, as though it had been blown out. When investigators took a closer look at the flat tire, they noticed the puncture was intentional. The entire scene seemed staged. The officers contacted Clay, but he didn't want to say anything, telling them that he needs to call his lawyer instead. Not even 24 hours after Jackie had disappeared, Clay Waller had lawyered up, so detectives quickly applied for warrants to search Jackie's car, Clay's truck, and the house where he was staying. Agent Ritter saw something in the back of Jackie's car. It seemed to be a spot of blood. And then investigators searched Clay's truck. More blood smeared on the inside of the driver's side door was found. Both samples were sent to the lab, and unbelievably, when the results came, it turned out to be fish blood. Clay had intentionally put it on the door of his truck. He recorded himself with his cell phone doing so, saying that he had put the fish blood there basically as a test for law enforcement to see how sharp they are. But back at Clay's house, team members arrived to find the hallway carpet missing. They even located what they believed to be blood on the walls in the hallway. Investigators still had to determine where the blood came from, and after analysis, the blood was actually Jackie's. From that moment on, they were pretty sure the woman was not alive anymore. But without a body, there still wasn't enough to prove anything. Investigators began searching for clues by reconstructing the last day Jackie was seen alive. It starts at a drugstore, where at around 11 o'clock that day, Jackie is seen walking up to meet Clay. Approximately 2 hours later, Jackie was caught on an ATM surveillance video. That was the last video of her alive. But it's not the last they see of Clay. Hours after that, he's spotted inside a toy store wearing a completely different outfit. Another video captured Clay's truck. It had a trash can on the back and was also towing a small boat. Clay then washed it very meticulously, making sure to get rid of any stains, possibly blood stains. The officers released images of the boat to the public. A young man and a young woman said they saw that particular boat next to Devil's Island. They then searched that island multiple times but couldn't find anything. Days after Jackie disappeared, Agent Ritter convinced him to come in for a formal interview. Clay told Ritter that the blood in the hallway was the result of an accident in the kitchen, which, according to Clay, was not a big deal. It was a minor accident. And so, over the next several weeks, investigators kept a very close eye on Clay. They even put a tracker on his car, but he found it, and he would toy with police, sending them on wild goose chases. Soon, pictures of Jackie were everywhere, and with the entire community focused on the case, Clay Waller became increasingly frantic. He would drive by her parents' house, honking his horn, saying that they won't find anything and that they are fools. Besides that, he would flip off investigators who were handling the case. But all that confidence was about to backfire. Since Cheryl had full custody of the triplets, Clay threatened her life. That was enough for the police to arrest him. They knew at that point he had committed a crime. Before Clay was taken away, detectives tried to learn more about Jackie's disappearance. And, as he has done from the beginning, he denies his involvement, claiming he's the real victim here. In fact, he has his own theories, pointing the finger for whatever happened to his wife at a former associate named Gary. The problem with that is, police have already disproven it.
Might be willing to say a few words today?
Well, I'll say it after the thing.
Okay.
I'll say it after the thing.
Is there anything you'd like to say beforehand? Anything to the community, or?
I just miss my wife and my kids, and we're just trying to fight to see them.
Do you think you'll get that?
Well, I hope so. I mean, it's been a hard time for us all. So we're just gonna keep hoping for the best. Well, I can't change how people feel. I mean, there's a lot of emotions that are running high right now. I just don't know what to say yet. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. We're all just sad. It's just sad on both sides of the fence here.
And still want to let people know that you didn't have anything to do with what's going on here, and you want what everyone else wants. You want to find your wife?
For sure, yeah. We want her to come home alive, and I still.
Okay.
Thank you.
Scott?
He eventually pleads guilty to the federal charge of threatening Jackie's sister and is sentenced to 5 years behind bars. At the same time, prosecutors worked to make sure he would also face justice for Jacque. After nearly 2 years of turning over every rock, prosecutors finally felt comfortable enough to prove their case. Clay was charged with murder in the first degree and tampering with physical evidence. But despite the attorney's best efforts, without a body, getting a conviction was no guarantee. Plus, even though Jacque's family wanted Clay to face the stiffest possible punishment, they wanted to see their daughter even more. So, the parties involved made a deal. The deal was for Clay Waller to plead guilty to second-degree murder and accept a sentence of 20 years in exchange for revealing what he did with Jacque. Finally, when the time came, Clay would lead investigators right back to the place they had searched before. There they were, at Devil's Island. He really did choose a fitting place for the deeds, just saying. When the team got to the location, Clay couldn't pinpoint the exact location, saying that she's got to be around here somewhere. But investigators quickly found the body. They remembered that he put fertilizer over the corpse, and knowing that in large quantities it will rot the roots off of trees, they put it all together. The next day, she was dug up and she was sent home, just as her parents wanted. Her parents and sister had another difficult job. They had to inform the triplets about the tragedy. Finally, after the horrific news was broken, Jacque had her funeral, where all of her friends and family showed up. The funeral took place on the exact same day as her parents' 50th anniversary.
Good evening. After 2 long, painful years, today family and friends laid Jacque Sue Waller to rest. At a packed church in Park Hills, they said goodbye to the mother of 3 who was murdered by her estranged husband on June 1st of 2011. Crystal Britt takes us to the service that was all about Jacque, her life, and her legacy.
It's a day to celebrate the life of Jacque Sue Waller.
A crowded sanctuary filled with family and friends who've grieved the loss of Jacque for 2 years. On this day, closure for loved ones who endured such heartache and the unknown.
I just want to say to the Rawson family, on behalf of everybody that's here, you have our respect, and you all have handled this whole thing with great dignity and class.
On this day, instead of celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary, Stan and Ruby Rawson say their final farewells to their daughter.
For 2 years, thousands of us have witnessed the strength of their wedding vows.
While there were plenty of tears, there was also joy and laughter as everyone here focused on memories of Jacque.
Jacque was beautiful. It was because her inner beauty shined so bright.
Remembered as a hard worker, a loyal friend, but most of all, a mother.
Jacque carried this brag book over the course of time of the triplets growing, and started off yay big, and then it kept getting bigger and bigger.
Friend Bly Gailmore talked about Jackie's quick wit and her practical jokes.
Jacque embraced life and loved every minute.
The life of the party, even at work.
She would wear her boa.
As you look around the crowd, several wore feather boas to honor Jackie's character.
Yes, Jacque was fun, playful, kind-hearted. She was loving and she was lovable. Be still, I know.
Even through the smiles, you could sense the heartache in this room, the senselessness of her death.
A lot of dark days and storms, a lot of questions that still yet may even want to be answered.
The focus on faith and prayer.
God did hear, God did answer.
That one of the greatest ways that we can support this family is not only be here today, but to pray for them every day from here on out.
Jacque, you are one of a kind.
A tearful goodbye, yet tears of joy as they treasure every moment shared.
Jacque Waller was laid to rest here at Woodlawn Cemetery in Leadington, a family cemetery just right across the street from the Rawson's family church.
I leave you now for a little while for a home that awaits us all. We will be together once more when we hear the Master's call.
But there was still another part of Clay's plea agreement left to fulfill. As part of the deal to get just 20 years for murdering his wife, Clay would have to confess on camera to every brutal detail of his crime. Clay says the wheels were really set in motion the year before Jackie died, when she first started talking about splitting up. In other words, Clay says she was warned. When asked when he dug the hole, he said that he did it a day before. Of course, Clay gives another reason why she wanted to meet. He said that she requested to have sex with him one last time before the divorce was final. It was a stunning claim, and interrogators weren't buying it. Nor did they believe what Clay said next. He confessed that after going back to his place for sex, they ended up in the kitchen, where it all started by accident. Supposedly, Jackie was getting something from the fridge, and he was doing the same. At one point, he raised his head and accidentally hit her nose, making it bleed. In the hallway, where investigators found all that blood, Clay says that's where Jackie, probably mad from the incident, started provoking him. He said that was the point of no return. According to him, she said he'll never see these kids. This could be labeled a crime of passion brought on by an accident in the kitchen and Jackie's threats. He said he didn't plan to kill his wife. The problem with that claim? Clay's own statements from just moments before. Why did he say he dug a hole the day before? And that still wasn't the only thing that didn't add up. He was asked if he punched her, but he said that he did slap her over the face once and also put his forearm over her neck until she didn't move. But Jackie's autopsy told a different story, revealing multiple fractures to her face and skull consistent with blunt force trauma. It was clear that he was lying. But one thing the investigators do believe is Clay's claim that after he killed Jackie, he put her body in a trash can, loaded it into the back of his truck, then drove to meet his girlfriend and 5-year-old son at the toy store. Clay says that after he took Jackie across the river to Devil's Island, there, after dumping her into the pre-dug grave, he said a few final words. He said that all he wanted was his family. In the end, Clay's confession was hard for many to accept, lying his way through a confession, and even blaming the victim. Because of his plea deal, Clay will only serve a maximum of 20 years. But as it turns out, prosecutors still had one more trick up their sleeves. Clay Waller has admitted to murdering the mother of his 3 children, but investigators still aren't convinced they've heard the whole truth, and they certainly haven't heard much regret. And if there's any doubt about that, a recorded jailhouse phone call between him and one of his relatives proves the man didn't regret anything. He was told to be apologetic, but Clay responded by saying that he's going to stand up in court and tell everyone to go fuck themselves. Why would he care about them if they don't care about him? It was clear that he was still considering himself a victim. The last thing he said was that he was sorry because he was going to jail, not because of what he did. Clay continued to say that he was happy with the 20-year sentence, thinking that's the most they could do to him. But it turns out that he got his hopes up. During his confession, Clay let slip that he dug his wife's grave in Illinois the night before the murder, then came back to Missouri to take her life. As luck would have it, that was a violation of a rarely used Interstate Domestic Violence Act. It was Clay's travel across state lines with the intent to commit domestic violence that resulted in a federal charge being filed. His punishment for that crime was a much heftier 35 years in prison, and that sentence won't even begin until he serves out the 20 years for murder. Before Clay was taken away to serve his time, he's forced to stand up in court and listen to Jackie's loved ones give victim impact statements. The most dramatic testimony coming from his own son.
You're a big even whenever I'm an adult. I never want to see you again. You understand? We don't like you anymore. This is the last time you'll hear of me. Okay? Bye.
Clay had no reaction to the words of his own child. Investigators noticed that his son's speech didn't impact him at all. But the story is not over. There is one final chapter to this deranged tale, and it was written by Clay himself. Police learned that the murderer had written a book detailing the killing of his wife and his actions later. He titled his book, "If You Take My Kids, I'll Kill You." Short and to the point, but we doubt it would be a bestseller. It was one last slap in the face to the family he tore apart. I think it just goes to show you that Clay Waller's depravity knows no bounds. But while Jackie's family remains forever fractured by what Clay has done, they are far from broken. The kids are adopted by their aunt and uncle. Cheryl says they are very good kids, and the best compliment she gets is that you can't even tell the struggles they have been through. When they are interviewed several years later, Maddox said that by giving his victim impact statement, he wanted to make a difference in the case. While all the triplets are angry with their dad and miss their mom, they are now being raised in a house full of love. Their mother's memory kept alive by the very woman who kickstarted the investigation into her death, Jackie's sister, Cheryl. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like the video, comment down below your take on it, and please subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell in order to stay up to date each time we reveal a new shocking case. And until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes peeled. You never know what's lurking in the shadows.